So you telling me you don't know the importance of being in a student organization or being a leader within a student organization? You know what? I got the perfect episode for you. Just go ahead, stay tuned to After the Music.
Welcome to the Lazenby Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Lazenby, and I'm here to help you along your journey to your success. I will do this by sharing my experiences, as well as give tips and tricks I've learned through my current journey to receive my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. Throughout this season, I'll be covering topics including myths about college, transfer advice, networking, and much more. So get your pen and paper ready as we dive into each episode to take in something that gets you closer to your success.
Welcome and thank you for tuning in to another wonderful episode of the Lazenby Experience Podcast. We are still in season number 2, but we're going on to move on to episode number 8. Within this episode, I will be discussing the importance of student organizations in leadership. But before I go down and talk about my 5 values of being a student leader and being in a student organization, I want to give a little story time. So ever since I was in high school, I have always been involved, at least tried to be involved as much as possible. In high school, I was in the marching band. I was on the football team. I was on the wrestling team. What else did I do? In my church, I was in the choir. I was on the mime team. I even helped count the tithes and offerings at the end of the church because my mom did. And because I was like, you know what? I have to be here anyway because there's no way for me to go home because my mom was my ride. I end up helping as well. So I always try to find a way where I can be involved some way. And that changed not any little bit when I started college. So when I started college, I tried to get involved as soon as possible. I remember actually right after my freshman year, I ran for president of one of the organizations that I love probably the most, and you will hear about the most throughout this episode, which is NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. I did not get that position at that time, but I did hold a lot of other positions within the chapter. I held positions from secretary, and I eventually did become president of the chapter. I even started an organization. But also within NSBE, I loved NSBE so much that I didn't just stay on the chapter level. I moved up to what we call the regional level, which is a level right above the chapter level. And I was fortunate enough to be on the regional board. My first time as a part of our fall conference committee, and then the second time as our Region 4, who your mama, if you know, you know, as the Region 4 vice chair. So I had a great time as a leader on the regional board. I had a great time with all my positions that I was in. I was able to learn a lot. But I was able to also gain a lot. I was able to get a lot of the internships and the co-ops. And once I graduate, the careers after I graduate, because of the different experiences I had as a student leader. Now, I definitely want to say I consider myself an introvert. So for all you introverts out there, you can definitely still be a student leader. But for some reason, when it comes to being a part of NSBE and trying to get other people to also be a part of NSBE, I chose some extroverted tendencies. At my first school, NIU, and at my current school, we have events at the beginning of the school year called involvement fairs, and that's where all the organizations are able to get a table and showcase their organization. So new students can come around and look at all the organizations. And so each organization can have a chance to recruit new members. Because, of course, after every year, you lose members because they graduate. So we want to continue gaining new members, whether they are freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. But I'm always at those involvement fairs, talking to everyone, trying to figure out what their goals are to see if their goals match up with what we offer at NSBE. And a lot of times, even if they never come to a NSBE meeting after the first meet and greet, I still try to get their contact information, so we continue giving them information about our organization and how we can help them with their success. But that's all I want to talk about during my story time. I want to get straight into these values so you can get some value out of this episode. So my first value that I think you will get in what makes being a student leader or being a part of a student organization important is, of course, it looks good, or actually great, on your resume. It looks good to show your involvement within student organizations. It's great to show that you also have been a leader. Recruiters are not just looking for the straight A students. They're looking for what they call a well-rounded student, someone who is good in the classroom, but also good in other aspects outside the classroom, because they know once you graduate and start the job, is not going to be like the classroom. It's actually going to be more like a student organization than it would be like the actual classroom, as far as working with other people and accomplishing different goals. It also gives you more topics you can cover or refer to when you're at a career fair and you're talking to recruiters, or when you're in a job interview and you have to give different situations to answer different questions that they might ask during the interview. And then it also helps you stand out among other applicants. Like I said before, if you are a student leader, you're more likely to get a chance to talk to recruiters of companies that you're interested in than if you're just a student. So I want to talk about, so it's crazy because during one of my interviews, I talked about an organization that I started. I think I talked about this in another episode too, but I talked about this Black investment club that I started here at my current school, and the lady that was interviewing me was so fascinated with me about me starting an organization, not just about it being about finances, but just me being a student and wanting to starting an organization, even though it didn't go as planned and it's not an organization today, but we did try to start something. Because even if the organization didn't last, or even because my organization didn't last, I still was able to learn something from it and gain experience from it. So just because if you're trying to start an organization and it doesn't go as planned, doesn't mean that it's not information you should put on your resume or talk about during an interview. When you're in a job, they don't expect you to be perfect all the time. They want you to, of course, do your job correctly, but they also understand that failures do come. So being able to show that you failed at something and showing that you learned something from it will definitely look good when it comes to standing out amongst other applicants. So definitely it looks great on your resume. Moving on to value number 2, you're going to gain a lot of valuable soft skills and life skills. Being a leader, this is where you learn how to delegate tasks to other people, manage your time between being a student leader in class, being able to present in front of people, whether it's your organization or in front of like the student government, so you can get funding in front of other professors, so you can get funding from your department or whatever it is. And so much other things you learn. All of these are valuable skills, not just to put on your resume, but for your career, for whatever you decide to do after you graduate. These are valuable things that you will be able to use after you graduate and you start your career, whether it's at a company or you start your own company. You also get to understand your weaknesses and your strengths and work towards making them better. That's very important because in a lot of interviews, they do ask you about what are your strengths and weaknesses. And it's good to have those kind of knowing those type of things, and not just knowing them, but trying to improve on those things. So when you're in your interview, you can talk about that kind of stuff and like, I might have this weakness now, but this is what I'm doing to make it better. Next, you're going to learn to work with teams outside of the classroom environment. So, of course, when you're in class, you will have to work in teams in some aspect. But the difference is in the classroom, you're trying to get a good grade. Like you have to take that class. You have to be in that group. So you have to get a good grade so you can pass it. When you're working in the organization, it's all volunteering. So if you don't want to be there, if somebody don't want to be there, they don't have to be there. It's not a requirement for you to graduate. It's not a requirement for you to have a job. So doing it, you'll be able to see you're not doing it for a grade. You're doing it to see how great of a result you get for your organization. So you're doing it to see the outcome of whatever you're trying to do with your organization, whether it's going to a conference, planning an event on your campus, doing a fundraiser or whatever it is. You're doing it because you want to see an outcome, which is not a grade. That is not a grade. And it's more similar to what the real world is going to be after you graduate. Like when you go into your job, your first job, you're not going to get a grade after 4 months of working there. You would definitely probably get like a review after working there for maybe 6 months to a year or something. But it's not going to be like A, B, or C. It's going to be like, these are things that you did good. These are things you didn't do so well. And it's the same thing you want to focus on when you're in a student organization or a leader of a student organization. Next, you're learning things you wouldn't learn in the classroom that are great for your career after college. So I kind of talked about this already, like delegating and motivating as the president or the vice president of your chapter, managing a budget, a real budget as a treasurer, and then also like communicating to the membership as a secretary. All of those skills, all of those things that you're doing within your role is something that can help you look good when it comes to looking for a career after you graduate. So that's everything about gaining valuable soft skills and life skills. Let's move on to value number 3. This is very important. And I say that every time, but it is. Value number 3, build your network. The people in your club will be the next CEOs, will be the next doctors, the next lawyers, the next engineers, the next teachers. Oh, I said teachers already, but they will be the next people, the people that can help you or benefit you in the future and vice versa. So it's very beneficial for you to be a part of different organizations and networking and making relationships with these people, because you never know what can come of it after you graduate and everyone go their separate ways, but you still have that connection. If your organization participate in conferences in and outside of your school, you'll be able to meet and build partnerships with intelligent people from across the country and maybe even the world, both students and professional. Like I said, I'm going to continue talking about NSBE. We have conferences once a semester, and we get to meet and network with a lot of other Black engineers from around the U.S., both students, professionals, recruiters, companies. We are getting this opportunity to network and find careers after graduate, internships and co-ops while we're still in college. So being a part of organizations, especially professional organizations, can get you to attend events like conferences at NSBE, where you can broaden your network with people outside your school. Your faculty advisor or advisors could have connections with professionals and companies that will be used for your future, that they will gladly introduce you to. So your advisor, again, is someone else who can increase your network with people that they know, because they might have been the advisor for that certain organization for years before you even started going to that school. So they have connections with companies and people who have either graduated from that school or work at companies that are close to your school, and they can introduce you and they can bring them to your organizational meetings. They can have meet and greets and those type of things and help you, again, continue to build your network, because that's probably the second most important thing when it comes to going to college after receiving your degree. Lastly, about building your network, being the leader of one organization puts you in the room with other student leaders, and that's another way for you to build your network. So just when you become a leader of one organization, you start to see other students within leadership roles in other student organizations. So you guys have this kind of already connection. You probably go into similar problems or situations within your organization. So you're being able to network and learn from them, and they're able to learn from you, and you guys can build a network together. But next week, I will be diving more into how to build a network and why a network or building a network is important. So definitely stay tuned to that next week. So that's everything I want to talk about building a network. Going on to value number 4, having life-changing experiences / memories. So things you accomplish or don't accomplish will be things you remember a long time after you graduate. These will be memories you cherish and talk about with your kids, your grandkids, and even random people that you meet. It's crazy because even to this day, I would never forget that at my first school at NIU, when I was the chapter president and we went on to our different conferences that we went to, I was usually, I say in quotations, the chaperone, or I made sure that our chapter didn't do anything to jeopardize our chances of going to a conference in the future. Because I have, when I was a freshman, when I was a part of that same chapter, seen a situation within my chapter that could have jeopardized our chances of going to future conferences. So having that in the back of my head when I became the president, I did not want that to happen again. So I basically became, a lot of people call me the dad or the grandpa of the chapter, because I always want to make sure we went to the events we had to go to, make sure everybody knew what time to wake up, knew what time we were leaving, knowing what time we were trying to eat and all that kind of stuff. So I was basically the parent of the chapter, and I take that with pride because I enjoyed being the dad or the grandpa of that chapter. There will be experiences you won't be able to do again once you graduate and move on with your career. These things can be like organizing a banquet for your organization, winning an award for your organization, competing in competitions, and going on road trips to conferences. So like I said, our chapter, NSBE have conferences every semester. And when the pandemic was not a thing, they were in person, and we used to always drive I think we flew like one time, but for the most part we would drive to wherever the conference was. And those trips, going to the conference, living in the hotel for the weekend, driving back, that's where we really got to create memories and get to know each other as not just organization members, but as a family. Like a lot of times when it was a new member going to a conference around, and they could have been somebody who was shy or didn't talk a lot, about time we came back from the conference, it was just like anybody else in the organization. They was talking to everybody. They were feeling more open with everybody and feeling more like a family. So those are memories, those are experiences that I will remember, and hopefully my other chapter members will remember long after I graduate, long after we start our careers and do what we want to do in the future. So that's value number 4, having life-changing experience and memories. Going on to my last value, I think is important for you to join, and why you should join student organizations and being leaders within student organizations, is they are challenging in ways you won't be challenged otherwise. So you're learning to deal with other leaders who might not care about the organization as much as you, and you having to make tough decisions if they don't. There was one time when I was chapter president of NSBE at my old school, where we had a leader who, again, this is all volunteer. So he volunteered to have this leadership role within our chapter. And we thought he would be a good person for that role because he was a part of that team the year before. So now he was just moving up to the leader of that role. Unfortunately, he didn't do the job that we expected him to do. He wasn't coming to meetings like he should have. So we, as the rest of the board, had to make the tough decision to actually impeach that leader. And like I said, it was challenging because you never want to tell someone they can't do something or be the bearer of bad news to somebody, especially if you consider them a friend. But sometimes you have to make those tough decisions. And again, making those tough decisions can give you the experiences that you can talk about during an interview or at a career fair that can set you apart from other people when you're looking for internships, looking for co-ops, looking for full-time positions. You also learn different ways to raise money. So your organization can go to conferences or host events or do whatever your organization wants to do. You also learn how to gain and maintain members and encourage them to be future leaders, because eventually you do want to graduate, but you also want your organization to continue after you graduate. So you have to figure out ways to motivate people to continue to be a part of your organization, but not just continue to be a part of the organization, but to be a leader within the organization. And then lastly, you learn to push yourself until the end, even if the road gets tough. Again, if you're part of an organization that you really love, like I am, and with NSBE, you learn how to get through the tough times. You learn how to make sure everyone feels like they're involved, make sure no one feels stressed, make sure you guys accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. And if you don't accomplish those goals or don't finish the goals that you set for yourself, you learn from that experience. So when the next people come, they can also learn from that experience, and you keep passing down that information so your chapter continues to grow and it doesn't just stay stagnant throughout the years. you build and have something to be proud of after years of working within your organization. But those are my 5 values. I don't have a bonus value for you guys this week, but I hope you did learn something from those 5 values and why it is important for you not just to be a part of a student organization, but to also be a leader within those student organizations. And you don't have to be a leader with every student organization you be in, and you don't have to be a leader within just the professional student organizations. Whatever organization you're interested in, they most likely have some type of leadership within that organization so they can accomplish different goals. So if you love comic books and there is a comic book club within your organization, within your school, I'm pretty sure there's leadership roles that you can get within the comic book club that can help you gain these valuable skills, help you look good in front of employers, and help you get that job, help you get that career after you graduate. So before I leave you guys, I do want to give a little advice of the week. Number 1, if you are a student, the number 2 thing after your academics should be getting involved with at least one organization and taking on a leadership role. Now, you don't have to be a leader throughout your whole college experience, but if you at least be a leader for a year, 1, you might like it and want to continue doing it or move on to a different role. But then if you don't like it and you don't want to continue on that role, you don't have to, but you still gain that experience of being a leader for at least that 1 year. No matter how big or small the organization is or how big or small your role is, you can learn something and you can positively change your life forever. So do not be a part of a student organization or be a leader within the organization, because once you graduate college, you can no longer get that experience of being a student leader. And it might be harder for you to actually get that job that you want after you graduate. My second piece of advice if there's no organization on campus that you like, create one. I talked about this episode. I think I talked about this another episode, but if you can't find an organization that's already on campus, create that organization. Find other students that you think are interested or would be interested in that organization. Find at least one faculty member that can be your faculty advisor, because usually to be an official organization at a club, you have to have a certain number of students. Each school is different. You have to have at least one faculty member to be your advisor. And it don't even have to be a faculty member within your department. As long as they are a faculty member within your school, that should be okay. And then you can start your organization. And then that faculty advisor is not just a requirement, but hopefully there's somebody that can help guide you to be successful within your organization. And even if you do fail and you don't get the members that you want or whatever, you still gain valuable skills or valuable experiences that can help you with your future. But as long as you put in that work and you can show that you put in that work and explain your experiences that you had through that time of trying to start an organization, it still can be valuable experience for you and for your future. Lastly, before I let you guys go, my last piece of advice: make sure you are building your network along the way, because you never know where people will end up. Like I said, people within your organizations, people within other organizations are going to be the next leaders, either within your community, within your city, within your town, within this country. So you definitely want to build networks with them, because you never know where they're going to end up, and vice versa. They never know where you're going to end up. So having those connections will definitely only be a positive thing for you in the future. Even if some reason nobody end up being anybody within your student organization, you can still be successful. But if someone does be successful or do something that can help you within your future, that's one other thing that can help you along your way to your success. So I hope you learned something from this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed talking about it. I'd like to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Lazenby Experience podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything I talked about during this episode, please email me at lazenbyexperience@gmail.com. That's LAZENBY experience@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to follow, like, share, and subscribe on all platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else that you listen to your podcasts. Also, don't forget, season 1 is available on all those platforms as well. So if you haven't had a chance to check out season 1, please go ahead and binge watch those episodes. Those are also great episodes with a lot of great content that they can help you with your goals in your future. Lastly, if you're sick of hearing my voice, my lovely voice, I have the perfect thing for you, which is my blog post. Every episode will have its own blog post on lazenbyexperience.wordpress.com. So you can go there and read about the same content that I'm talking about during each episode. But guess what? There's more. I started this blog before I started a podcast, so there are other blog posts that I have already posted that you can binge read if you would like, with a lot of, again, more great content that I believe can help you, and some great stories about myself too, if you're interested in learning more about who I am and how I got to where I am. But as always, thank you for listening to this episode of the Lazenby Experience podcast. I really appreciate it. But until next time, continue your journey until you reach your success. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Lazenby Experience podcast. I hope you're able to get something out of it to help you with your success. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, like, share, and subscribe on all platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, and Apple Podcasts at the Lazenby Experience. Have questions about this episode or have topics you would like me to cover in the future? Send me an email at lazenbyexperience@gmail.com. That's LAZENBY experience@gmail.com. Lastly, I would like to give a huge shout out to Jamari Michael of Indigo Entertainment Group for the instrumentals you heard throughout this episode. Again, thank you for listening to the Lazenby Experience podcast, and until next time, continue your journey until you reach your success.